How can one integrate boxing into weightlifting and bodybuilding? Should I get jacked and functional first, gaining muscle mass, and then start boxing to maintain muscle mass? This is a problem every single one of us will come face to face with on a daily basis. Lifting weights, diet, starting that new hobby or business, it's everywhere. It's a human thing. The problem usually comes in the form of 3 words: if, when, then. What I want is X, but I could never do X, not me. No, I could only ever do X if I first did Y. When I do this, then I can do that. Trying something new is uncomfortable. If you haven't boxed before, you're gonna suck bad when you start. That's how it goes. And failing makes you vulnerable. It's much easier to say, well, I'll build some muscle first because no one can really hold me accountable for that, and once that happens, sometime in the distant future me can deal with the stress of being a beginner at something again. I'll let you in on a secret. If you start that way, you will stay that way. Right now, building muscle is the barrier you've set up between you and boxing. In a year it might be conditioning, in another year it might be fat loss, or any one of 1,000 other things. Until you decide to start now, you'll never get there. My recommendation is to start boxing today. If you want to be a boxer, you need to box. Start there, and once you make that a solid part of your life, then work on the gym training as a supplement, as something that helps your boxing, not something that holds you back from it. Psychological improvements from daily training. Training every day works great for building strength and muscle, but for me, the mental benefits are the real reason I do it. I've heard popular fitness guys here on YouTube say things like, you need to separate training and mental health, or training shouldn't be your therapy, or however they choose to word it, but I think that's stupid. Daily movement, doing something hard every day completely transformed my life. Since I started training every day, I'm more calm and content, I complain less, I don't crave things like junk food or other quick fixes like I used to, and I continue getting stronger and building muscle, same as I would have if I didn't train every day. Here's a question I think everyone should consider. Would you rather be completely out of shape, fat and ugly, too weak even to carry in the groceries, but 100% content and happy at all times with your life, or strong, jacked and muscular with world records and first place finishes on bodybuilding stages, the envy of everyone, but it's a struggle to get through the day and you feel sad and depressed at all times? Your first thought is probably the second one, but I'd take the first any day of the week. Who cares about muscle if you're unhappy? Going through life and enjoying it is so much more important. So even if somehow daily training led to inferior gains, which it doesn't, I'd still do it because enjoying life matters most. Do you think we need a common sense approach to most things in this information age where we tend to overthink everything? Common sense approach boiled down to the basic elements. Eat whole foods, get stronger. Eat whole foods. You can go pretty deep into nutrition, which foods give you a better life expectancy, which ones build the most amount of muscle, what can or can't you digest well as an individual, and that's all great. We can always try to do better, but focusing on nutritionally dense whole foods and using some common sense will get you where you want to go. We all know an apple is a better choice than a donut. It doesn't need to get any more complicated than that if you don't want it to. Get stronger. Muscle leads to strength, or strength leads to muscle. Pointless debate. The two things go together. You can't separate them. Find a training style you like. It doesn't matter what it is. Machines, barbells, sandbags. Pick a rep range you like. Sets of 5, sets of 35, circuits. And every workout, force yourself to do better than you did last workout. Try new exercises and training styles if you want. Experimenting is fun, but end of the day, pick something, get better at it, and you will grow. How would you program calisthenics skill acquisition without feeling like you're wasting time? For example, I'm practicing handstands, but it's hard to get a good workout in just standing in a handstand. First, you need to decide on your goals. Is the handstand all you care about, or do you want more? Your question makes me think you want to improve your calisthenics skills while also building general strength and muscle, which would be different than if you only cared about the handstand. If it's handstands and nothing else, just continue on as you have been, spending as much time practicing as you can, and don't worry about whether it feels like a workout or not. If it's skills plus general strength and muscle training, there are a few things you can do. First, you might consider dedicating 1 or 2 days a week entirely to skill training while doing basic gym workouts on the other days. One method for this is to do EMOM, every minute on the minute workouts. If you only care about the handstand, you might try balancing for 10 seconds every minute for 30 minutes. If you want multiple skills, you might pair 2, preferably 2 that don't overlap, like a handstand and a front lever for example, and go back and forth. 10-second handstand minute 1, 10-second front lever minute 2, and so on. Another thing you might consider is sneaking in some practice during your normal workouts. This won't be as optimal as the other method, and it will take some time for your work capacity to catch up, but it can be effective. For example, if you're training back and you have 3 sets of rows, you could fill the rest time between those sets with handstand practice. In this way, you'll improve your handstand without taking much away from your regular workouts. Most value for time workout for the core. I'm always confused on where to start. 100% my answer is heavy weighted carries. Value for time, bang for buck, return on investment, you just can't beat heavy carries. They work and they work fast. Any variation will do. My favorites are trap bar farmer's walks, sandbag bear hug carries, sandbag shoulder carries, or any kind of offset carry like a one-arm farmer's walk. Work on increasing the distance you can go in the 30-second to 2-minute range, or longer if you want. Add weight over time, and your core will improve. I like focusing on carries as the main part of a workout, but one idea you might like is using carries as a finisher to an exercise. For example, if you were doing the sandbag to shoulder, you might turn the last few attempts of the day into shoulder carries. If you were doing trap bar deadlifts, strip away some weight after your final working set and do a few sets of farmer's walks. Overhead press, finish with some overhead carries. In this way, you'll strengthen your core while at the same time pushing your primary exercises further. Can I start doing high pulls every day? Will that build muscle? You could do that if you wanted to, and you would build muscle, but you might run into some joint overuse issues, especially in the elbows, and in my opinion, there are better ways to go about it. Because you asked this question, I'll assume you like the exercise, you enjoy the gains you get from it, and I'll also assume you understand the connection between strength and muscle. 200 pounds for a set of 5 requires more muscle than 100 pounds for a set of 5, just as a general rule of thumb. So my thought is, rather than doing high pulls every day, what if you instead view the high pull as your sport, your competition movement, like the squat to a power lifter or the snatch to a weightlifter, and find ways to improve your strength without needing to do it every day. Rather than high pulls every day, what if you instead do high pulls 3 days a week and focus on accessory exercises on the other 4? Not only will this reduce the risk of overuse issues by a lot, but it will also most likely lead to better progress long term. Framework set, all that's left to do then is dissect the movement into small parts. The high pull is a power-based triple extension exercise focused primarily on the muscles of the posterior chain. To build that extension power, you might work with something like a kettlebell swing or a basic vertical jump. To build the corresponding muscles, you might consider basic bodybuilding exercises for the glutes, hamstrings, and back. Rows, lunges, good mornings, 45 hypers, or even power shrugs could all be beneficial. Stick with it, force yourself to lift more weight or do more reps, or at the very least be more explosive every time you hit the gym, and in no time you'll be yoked and powerful. What are your philosophies on personal finance? Hard truth, most will never have enough money. Second hard truth, you will need to spend a very large portion of your life working, whether you make a lot of money or not. I spent many years chasing freedom, or what I thought was freedom. What's the least amount of work I can do to get by so I have the most amount of free time? Also, what's the easiest and least stressful job I can get so I'm not worn out for that free time? I fought against work and money because I hated being told that I had to do something. Turns out that's a poor way to live. There are no easy jobs. The time you trade is the same either way. You have to work full time if you want to pay your rent. When you fight against what's required of you, all you're left with is a feeling of emptiness. You slaved away anyway, you just hated it the entire time. The most impactful change in my life was learning to love work. Money sucks and I have to work for the rest of my life whether I have a lot of it or not. Okay then, rather than fighting that, why not find a way to embrace it? Pick something, anything you enjoy doing, and throw yourself into it completely. Master an instrument, or a video game, or lifting rocks, or making videos. The internet means anything can be monetized. Work your job to pay the bills, and spend every other second you have mastering something. Eat, sleep, and work. Learn to love it. Once you're skilled, you can start leveraging that skill to make money. It will take time, but hey, you'll be working either way. Might as well do something cool. Once I get to 20 reps per shoulder for the sandbag to shoulder, rather than adding weight, can I reduce rest times, working towards only 30 seconds rest between reps rather than 1 minute? Will this interfere with strength development? Yeah, you can do that if you want. More work in less time with a weight that's heavy enough means increased strength and muscle size. Work up to 20 reps per shoulder, slowly decrease rest times between attempts to 30 seconds, add 10 to 20 pounds to the sandbag, and start over again. My main advice to anyone using this approach, don't rush. When you increase the weight, don't try to force the volume beyond what's necessary. Your total workload should wave up and down over time. Adding 10 to 20 pounds to the sandbag will probably mean you'll go back down near 10 reps per shoulder with a full 1 to 2 minutes rest between each rep again, and that's okay. Again, don't rush. It's easy to get hooked on that high volume, fast-paced approach, but if you want to continue making gains long term, you will eventually need to add weight. You'll need to accept that your workouts will feel different while you build back up. Going down to 8 reps per shoulder with 2 minutes rest between attempts after doing 20 per shoulder with 30 seconds rest might make you feel like you didn't get a good workout or something like that, but that's false. Take your time, trust the process, look at the long-term big picture, and you will see results. 1. How do you know when to increase sandbag weight? I can shoulder 150 pounds all day, but when it comes to squatting, it folds me in 5 to 6 reps. 2. How much weight should I add? 25 pounds, or should it be more substantial? The first thing I'll say is you might have some crazy potential for shouldering very heavy weights. Sandbag squats should be much easier than the sandbag to shoulder. If you take the time to bring up your weak points, I have no doubt you'll be doing some incredible things by this time next year. I have 2 ideas that should help. First, it's possible you have an imbalance between your lower body and your upper body. If that's the case, I'd go into maintenance mode for everything besides the legs and start hitting them hard for at least a month. Focus on squats and lunges, split squats, something you enjoy doing, and work on getting stronger. The legs adapt fast and you should see rapid improvements. The second possibility is that you lack strength endurance in a bear hug position, in which case my recommendation would be to focus more on bear hug carries. Do them more often than you have been without clasping your hands together, and work on going until you can carry that 150-pound sandbag for at least a minute and a half. 2 minutes would be even better. For your second question, if you can shoulder 150 all day, you might consider jumping straight to 200, then moving up at a slower pace after that. Anywhere between 10 to 25-pound jumps is effective. In retrospect, if you could start your everyday back training again, would you change it to every second day or do the same? I'm just wondering if you would have built quicker with rest days in between. The first thing I want to say is the back just keeps going. Never once during this entire 800+ day journey did I feel like I'd done so much work for the back muscles that I couldn't just come back the next day and do it again. And you saw my training. It wasn't easy. The back just recovers insanely fast. It can handle a lot of volume, a lot of high intensity work. That's the thing that surprised me the most, the main lesson I got from this whole thing. The back can handle more than what you're doing right now, and you will grow more if you do more. This includes the lower back too, by the way. A lot of guys talk about the low back like it's this fragile thing that can only be trained once a week or something like that, and that just was not my experience. It took me a while to figure out the perfect way to manage fatigue so I didn't overwork myself, but if I could do it all over, I'd definitely train every single day again. The back is capable of so much. And muscle aside, daily training is the best hack I've ever found for keeping a clear and calm mind. I just feel better training every day, and unless I'm forced to, I'll never stop. My workout time is limited because of work. I sneak hundreds of push-ups a day but neglect my legs. What would you do to remedy that? One good leg exercise. Short answer, squats. Long answer, it depends on what you have available. For someone who's short on time but has access to a gym or some kind of weight, it doesn't get any more efficient than heavy squats. Barbells make things easy, but sandbags, rocks, kettlebells, a backpack, anything you can use to add weight to your body will make a squat training session very time efficient. That said, the way you worded that makes it sound like you're doing the push-ups throughout the day while you're at work, in which case you could do the same with squats, just accumulating a bunch of volume throughout the day whenever you get the chance. Squats and push-ups are a winning combo for getting some training in while you're at work. I used to do a lot of that myself. How long are your daily workout sessions? I usually do about an hour 5 days a week, but I think every day for an hour is too much for me. So I'm curious to know how much time you spend on exercise every day. One of the best things about training every day is that each session doesn't need to be very long. 5 hours per week is a good place to be. Rather than thinking of daily training as adding more work, just think about how you could split those 5 hours up to cover 7 days. I like doing 2 to 3 sandbag sessions, each lasting about an hour and a half every week, plus 4 to 5 20-minute calisthenics circuit workouts on the other days, which usually ends up near that 5-hour mark too. There's a lot of freedom with daily training. One thing you might consider is warm-up and setup time. I know I take a long time to warm up before a workout where my legs are involved, so doing more than 2 to 3 leg sessions per week would mean a much bigger time investment. That's part of what I like so much about upper body focused bodyweight calisthenics circuit workouts. Setup time is short and warm-up time is short. It depends on how you train, but you might consider setting up your workouts in a way that cuts down on that extra time. If you had to pick just one ab exercise for the front of the abs and the obliques for beginners just starting their training journey, what would you pick and why? Well, I have some ideas, but the problem is, as a beginner, your rate of progress is so fast, you'll just outgrow anything I give you in no time at all. I might say begin with crunches and oblique crunches, and maybe to start you can only do 5 reps, but because those are so easily scalable, and because you're primed to adapt so quickly as a beginner, it won't be more than a few weeks before you're doing sets of 30. 30. And the last thing I want is for you to hyper-focus on exercises you've outgrown just because I recommended them. So my recommendation to you as a beginner is to focus on things that challenge you. You might start with crunches and oblique crunches, work up to 30 reps, then move on to leg raises and flutter kicks, get 30 reps, move on to sit-ups, then decline sit-ups, and in just a few months you'll be doing some hardcore weighted ab work as an intermediate lifter, as someone who's left the beginner stage behind. Keep doing things that are hard and you will make it. If you had to make a program that was the bare minimum needed to build the most amount of strength and muscle, how would you structure it? I'd love to know your thoughts because I work a lot and by the time I get home, I'm exhausted. Well, straight away, let's compare time efficiency and effort. The most time efficient workout will require a substantial amount of effort, whereas a less time efficient workout, one that takes longer, will require less effort. So you just have to be honest with yourself. How exhausted are you? Do you have what it takes to come in after work and push with everything you have for an intense 20 minutes, or will you need something that's easier but might take an hour? That's up for you to decide, but my recommendation for a program that's the bare minimum needed to build the most amount of strength and muscle would be the thing I do myself. Calisthenics circuits and sandbags. With calisthenics circuits, you can build a lot of strength and muscle in 20 minutes a day, but it takes a lot of effort to do it. Sandbags are the most efficient strength training tool I've ever worked with. I like the sandbag to shoulder, but you can make a crazy amount of progress just coming in twice a week and doing 2 max distance sets of bear hug carries and 2 max rep sets of squats. Bare minimum program, max intensity calisthenics circuits in the 10 to 20 minute range 2 to 4 times a week, a sandbag bear hug carry and squat workout once or twice a week, lots of food and lots of rest. What are your thoughts on supplements? Do you use any in order to help and recover from such intense training? I take a few. I don't think they're necessary. I do think you can get to the same place without them. And in my opinion, most of the stuff out there is a bit overhyped and overpriced. Pretty much everyone would be better off just focusing on getting enough sleep and hitting their micros and macros for the day with food. But there are a few that I think are worth it. I personally take melatonin. As a natural lifter, I think sleep is our most important resource for building muscle, and anything you can do to improve it helps. I also take creatine. I respond well to it. For vitamins, I take D3 and K2. I also take Gotu Kola, which is an adaptogenic herb. I've tried most of them, and Gotu Kola is my favorite. I've been taking it for years now. It can take a few months to really notice anything, but I've always felt a subtle shift towards positivity from adaptogens, which just continues getting better the longer you take them. Gotu Kola is supposed to help with tendon strength and stuff like that too, but it's hard for me to tell one way or another if it actually has or not. And that's it. Ideas for training finger and grip strength for sandbags. It depends which part of lifting a sandbag is giving you trouble. If it's from the lap to chest height, your fingers might be the weak point, in which case my best recommendation is to start doing all your carries without clasping your fingers or hands together. In my experience, the fingers will adapt quickly from that, and your bear hug strength should improve a lot too, which is a plus. If it feels like it's your fingers that are giving out when lifting a sandbag from the ground though, it's most likely actually a lack of wrist strength, specifically with the wrists in a false grip position. This is a completely new thing for most people moving to sandbag lifting from other, more traditional training styles. The best thing I've found to strengthen that specific position, aside from just spending more time with sandbags, is neutral, false grip pull-ups on a fixed bar. Work on increasing the time you're able to maintain that full false grip position, and you should see direct carryover to your sandbag lifting. What's your experience with fatigue during your everyday back training experiment, and how did you deal with it? 2 things I learned. 1, the muscles of the back are insane and never seem to wear out past the point of no return. The recovery capacity for this part of the body is just on another level. 2, central nervous system burnout is a very real thing. I did run into that a few times. The way I got around it was to keep my heavy, ultra high intensity workouts to 2 to 3 times a week max, and every other day I'd just do short but intense 20-minute calisthenics circuit workouts. It's all about that balance. Occasionally, I'd replace a circuit day with a low-intensity grease in the groove style pull-up day whenever I felt like I needed it, which I found acted as a form of active recovery. And I also forced myself to take a full week off from heavy lifting every 5 weeks or so. More than anything, I'd recommend giving yourself permission to change up your schedule as needed. If you're feeling extra run down, there's no need to push through the fatigue. More likely than not, that will just set you back. Maybe just do active recovery that day. There's no rush. You can always do your heavy work tomorrow. And also, don't think you need to train for an hour to see results. That's the great thing about training every day. Over time, the reps add up. How would you implement gymnastics rings, muscle-ups, pull-ups, dips, skin the cat, etc. in the circuit workout you've provided in the book, as these exercises are definitely more intense than regular pull-ups, dips, etc. I get what you're saying completely. Finding the perfect circuit is a balancing act. If you want to get as much out of them as you can, you'll want exercises that are hard enough to get you close to failure in the muscles, but easy enough so you can keep going at a steady pace and push the limits of your endurance. Rings are more intense than a straight bar, especially when you start doing things like muscle-ups, which means there will need to be a compromise. Rings will push a circuit more in the direction of muscle fatigue rather than cardio, but it's still doable. The main problem I see is that rings often have more of a skill component to them, and the potential for improper practice when pushing at such a high intensity will be there, so you'll need to pay extra close attention to your form. That said, if you want to use rings in a circuit, I would recommend sticking to a lower rep range. Rather than a 10 down, you might instead use a 5-3-2 setup, or a 5 down, or 3-2-1, and just go for rounds. Do as many rounds as it takes to complete the circuit in 20 to 40 minutes, and work at improving your time. The cardio demand won't be quite as high as it would be with higher reps, but it will still be there, and the muscles will get all the work they need. Which movements could replicate the benefits of sandbag training in a traditional gym setting? I actually made an entire video on that, I'll link it in the comments, but the very short version, you'll want to prioritize building the core in the lower back, the glutes, hamstrings and upper back, and the biceps and forearms. You'll want to improve your starting strength, things like dead stop squat variations and deadlift variations will help with that. You'll want powerful extension strength, which can be built with Olympic lifts and their variations or kettlebells. You need to be strong with your arms in a neutral position, so hammer curls and neutral grip pull-ups. You also need strong wrists. Doing your neutral pull-ups with a false grip will help with that and will carry over to sandbags. Start doing weighted carries like farmer's walks or Zercher carries. You need to develop your ability to strain, so if you aren't already, start maxing out on something heavy once every week or two if you can, and you'll want a core that's strong in all directions. Things like one-arm carries will help with that. Good luck. Since I'm about to completely drop barbell squats and deadlifts for sandbag work, I would like to know how incorporating sandbag training has impacted the development of your legs. Have you noticed balanced growth in both strength and size, or are there areas where your legs are unevenly developed? How does it compare to traditional weightlifting for stimulating leg hypertrophy? Second question. I haven't seen you do much quad work lately. Are your legs, quads, adductors maintaining off bag work? I made a video a while back about sandbags and building muscle, and in that video I focused only on exercises that were unique to sandbags, things like the sandbag to shoulder, etc. And with those specific exercises, I said the quads won't get the best training stimulus. I excluded movements that could be replicated with other training tools because I thought that would make the video redundant. Everyone knows squats build the legs, regardless of the training tool used, but I think a lot of people misinterpreted that as me saying sandbags can't be used to build the quads at all, which is definitely not the case. In general, sandbag lifting is posterior chain dominant. I have noticed a lot of growth in my hamstrings and glutes from it, but stuff like bear hug squats and lunges do hit the quads hard too. Personally, I spent a lot of time focused on the quads a few years back and hated that I couldn't walk around without my thighs rubbing together. So these days I choose not to prioritize them, but a few sets of squats every week has maintained my size well, and I have no doubt I could make them bigger if I put more work towards it. I think you'll be very happy with the switch for hypertrophy.